The NFL Honors is tonight. Who do I think wins all the awards? Go check out JG9 News, where I make my predictions on every single award being given out tonight. And now, on with our feature presentation. After Super Bowl 34, in the build-up to this game right here, advertising was a major talking point. So many .com companies advertised at the game that would not be able to do it in 2001, either because with the bubble bursting, they had no money, or they didn't even exist anymore. This meant that spots that might have previously been filled by advertisers were left vacant, which meant a lot more open spots for other companies to throw their name into the ring that might not have done so before, since it was a way less competitive market, and the ad prices wouldn't necessarily balloon from year to year. And it makes sense as to why other companies that survived the bubble or weren't in that space would be intrigued by this. Advertising at the Super Bowl gets your name out there in a way that nothing else can. If you do it right, you're remembered forever. Do it wrong though, and you get the story of what happened to a company known as Accenture. Because during this scheme that you've been watching this whole time, Accenture wanted to promote the fact that they were an established company that had undergone a necessary name change due to legal reasons that we'll briefly touch on in just a bit. And with that, they decided to buy a crap ton of ad space at the Super Bowl, to the point where they were up there with the most prominent advertisers of the game. And the end result was a campaign so bizarre and so confusing that it left way more questions than answers, and not in a good way, and left everyone wondering if this consulting firm was actually good at their jobs, which is, consulting people. Because this is the crazy story behind what might just be the most confusing ad campaign in Super Bowl history. Before I break down how absolutely terrible this ad campaign was, we need some context to understand the purpose and the message that Accenture was trying to convey. I'm not going to dive too much into the weeds of the situation, because this is a dispute that lasted over a decade and was incredibly ugly, and there's tons of resources on it, but here's the SparkNotes version of it. There were two companies, both under the same umbrella company known as Andersen Worldwide. One of them was Arthur Andersen, and the other was Andersen Consulting. However, for over a decade, these brands despised each other. Even though they were under the same umbrella company, they competed against each other for the same clients. And finally, in 1997, an arbitration filing was made. In 2000, after years and years of legal disputes, a court ruled that Andersen Consulting was now free from Arthur Andersen. However, in return, Andersen Consulting had to give up its name and change it to something else. Andersen had been around since the mid-50s, so this was a big change. Arthur Andersen got to keep its name, but the consulting firm by 2001 had to have a completely new name. Again, it is way more complicated and complex than this, but the long story short, Andersen Consulting had to not only change its name after a long time under that original name, but make people aware of what their new name is. Coming up with the name was fine. They changed it from Andersen Consulting to Accenture, which was short for Accent on the Future. Making people aware of the name, that was going to be a bit trickier. How do you get the word out that you've changed your name, while at the same time letting people know that you're not a new company? Well, that's where the Super Bowl helps a ton. Over 84 million people are going to be watching this game right here, as in the battle between the New York Giants and the Baltimore Ravens for football's championship. Get the word out there that you're now Accenture, and you're set, especially if the ad is good. Accenture was launching an $175 million campaign throughout 2001 to inform people about the change, and roughly 6% of that budget was strictly on the Super Bowl, where they bought 4 30-second ad spots. No small investment by any means. This was a company that had never advertised at the big game before, and now they were doing 4 spots. As James Murphy, the global managing director of marketing, said on this, "It's a big buy, but we have a big challenge. We're a $10 billion company trying to reposition itself with a new name." What's funny about this statement was that he flat out admitted that this might not be a good idea, and that the Super Bowl might not be the right fit. Imagine that. A 30-second spot costs $2.5 million. You bought 4 of these, so you spent $10 million on the spots alone, not even counting production costs or anything like that, and you're saying, I don't know if this is a good idea. Exactly what you want to hear out of a consulting firm. That's like if your teacher decides to order 400 textbooks when you only need 100, and she says, I don't know if everything in here is going to be factually correct and helpful. Like, maybe start at one 30-second spot if you're unsure about this, but whatever. So as a note to where we are in the story right now, the goal of these ads isn't necessarily to be funny, but rather to inform. Let people know, hey, we're a huge company, but we changed our name. Here's what our name is, and here's what we do. We're still the same old consulting firm that you know and love. And Murphy said as much, saying, we need to move from the old identity to the new identity in a brief period of time. So this makes a lot of sense for us. It puts a big exclamation point on it by being the Super Bowl. Alright, get the name out there with this consulting firm. With that, let's see one of these ads that they decided to run for the game.
Accenture.
So you're a science company? Huh, that's interesting. I didn't see anything about consulting in there. In fact, I'm kind of confused about what you do, but okay. That was one ad. Maybe the other ads will help explain things a bit more. Maybe it's a series of ads that tell a story.
Accenture.
So, you're a science company? Huh. I didn't know that you guys specialized in surgery and bacteria and all of that. That's really cool. That's clearly what you guys know. You're a consulting firm. Alright, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a bit confused. Maybe this next ad will explain things more.
Accenture.
So, you're a science company. I'm sorry, what? I thought you were a consulting company! What the heck did you do? And why did you play that music? Why did you play music that is straight out of a softball? I don't even need to say it! I don't even need to freaking say it! We all know what that sounds like!
Humana, 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 humana. Who is this? Oh.
Accenture.
Yep, that's right. Accenture bought 4 ads at the Super Bowl. The 4th of which isn't even worth showing because it's more the same. And none of them had anything to do with consulting. They were all science related, even though this is not a science-based company. You would think that they're making groundbreaking advancements in the world and changing the makeup of organisms forever. But nope, they just do consulting. And you never know it based off of these 4 ads. And look, I'm not saying that the ad has to be completely straight and boring and monotone. I'm not saying it had to say, we changed our name from Anderson Consulting to Accenture, and here's what we do. I'm not saying you have to show what you do at all, period. Heck, some of the most effective Super Bowl ads of all time don't show you a thing. I don't see a Macintosh anywhere in Apple's iconic 1984 ad, and that's the greatest Super Bowl ad of all time. The Budweiser frogs aren't drinking beer, and you have no idea what Budweiser is if you watch those ads. But it's still iconic. I can't tell you what EDS does based on their commercial, but I remember it because the cat herding ad is fantastic. So I'm not saying that in the slightest bit. What I am saying is that you're not a science company, you're a consulting firm. And don't just take my word for it, take your own freaking company. Accenture's new strategy includes establishing a network of new companies, new alliances, and approaches that will enable a consultant to offer more hands-on involvement to clients seeking help, as well as continuing its client service consulting services. In other ways, it intends to act as a matchmaker, helping to broker alliances or connections for clients in a world where global competition is changing the pace and the face of business. According to Dave Siebel, a managing partner in Accenture, we need to help clients become aware of the opportunities that are out there through alliances or other operating companies to allow that client to leverage their core competence to be successful in the marketplace. Yep, that sounds a lot like a company that's conducting surgery remotely or discovering new ways to use bacteria or make people live forever. Even an ad for the company said, "We're building a completely new network of businesses that will influence the shape of the new economy. This presents new and exciting challenges for our employees, with ever-expanding career options. There has never been a better time to be part of our dynamic global force as we bring innovations to improve the way the world works and lives." Really? Because it doesn't seem like it based on those ads. Seems like you're going for something completely different. The ads seem like the exact opposite of what you do. This is like if I aired a commercial at the Super Bowl that was just this. McDonald's. And the whole purpose of the ad was to try and let people know who you were. Did you really do a good job of letting people know who you were? Because guess what I don't see for the vast majority of the commercial? That's right, your freaking name! It's a blink and you miss it moment. You say the name of the company once, you show the name of the company once, and it's at the very end, when everyone's tuned out because they're bored to tears. Here's what happens. Either people tune out after the first 5 seconds, because you need to capture their attentions within the first 5 seconds, or they stay tuned in wondering what the heck this ad is for. And then, they see the newspaper clipping, and they're like, wait a second, this company did this before. And then they stop paying attention. Or they somehow stay through until the end, see the name pop up again, and say to themselves, they're a science company, not realizing that they're actually a consulting firm. And when I say that these series of ads got panned, oh man, do I mean it. Aside from just being at the bottom of the USA Today ad meter, they were panned tremendously. One writer for the New York Daily News said, "It's not easy to become pointless in 30 seconds, but Accenture did it." And does anyone have a clue what Accenture is or does? A writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch said, "After 4 commercials, we still don't know what Accenture does." You and me both. Redstone Communications ranked all the ads after the Super Bowl, and they had no idea who the heck Accenture was targeting. A writer for the North County Times asked the same thing that everyone was thinking. What is Accenture, and why did the company buy 4 commercials? The ad was so bad that at one watch party featuring Philadelphia executives, in true Philly fashion, people booed the ad, saying things like, "Yuck," and "they're missing the mark." A writer for the Salt Lake Tribune said, "Thumbs down all around. You have no idea what they do." A writer for the Santa Cruz Sentinel said, "The spots for Accenture were terrible. There was no explanation of what kind of consulting the company does. There was also no call to action." And one student who watched the ad and was thinking of going into the consulting business said, "I don't know what's going on here. For the first 20 seconds, it seemed to be a car commercial. I don't know why they're not saying their name more often." And in the most scathing review of them all, a Michigan State University advertising professor said, "We all sort of came up with the idea that Accenture needs a consultant for its next ad campaign." I'm not cherry picking or anything like that. I dug high and low, and legitimately could not find one place that actually praised the ad. The general sense was that the company's advertising was confusing. You had no idea what they did. That there was no need for them to buy 4 spots when they never even made one before. That it may have made people more aware that Accenture existed, but that doesn't mean anything if no one knows what you do. And at worst, that they were downright manipulative and lying and flat out delusional. Okay, really quickly, I just realized this doing the post-production for this video. You know what I didn't notice in the ad also, besides the fact that they barely say their name? There's no website. You would think for a company that prides itself on being huge in innovation and how online technology is changing, yeah, they would show their website in that final card, but look, the website's not even there. How can you do this? How can you spend $10 million on these 4 spots, build this 9-figure ad campaign, and not even put your own freaking website in the final card? Come on. But was the ad a success? Well, Jim Murphy defended himself and his company's decision to advertise at the Super Bowl with one of the most backwards explanations ever. Remember, this was a man who flat out admitted before the big game that this might not be the best idea. Then, he got panned for advertising at this game, and his response was to say, "Screw you guys, this was a good idea. Like, your gut was right. Your gut was right, this was a terrible idea." But he had to defend it. Said Murphy, "Our commercials were not aimed at the general public. We were reaching senior executives, not beer drinkers. We used the Super Bowl because we could reach 50% of our audience in one day. Our website traffic doubled." Okay, time out. First off, way to alienate any senior executives who happen to drink beer, which I'm guessing is quite a few. Number 2, you know, if you don't want to reach general audiences, but instead only want to target a select group of people, there is this thing called targeted advertising. You're a consulting firm, you may have heard of it. Number 3, how are you reaching senior executives when they don't even know what your company is? If I put out an ad for my YouTube channel, and the entire theme of the ad is kids' birthday parties, and I say that I'm trying to reach the die-hard football fans and not the single mothers, aside from the fact that many single mothers love football, so I'm alienating them, I'm not sure if you reached the right audience. I really don't think you did. And number 4, I love that you're bragging about your website traffic doubling, as if that means anything. How many of those people went to the website and immediately clicked off because they thought you were a science company? Plus, you were a no-name before this. No one knew who you were. Your company name did not exist even a month ago. Your traffic doubled from an insanely low number. It's not as though this is Apple saying that sales of their product doubled, or McDonald's saying that sales of the Big Mac doubled. Your website traffic doubled right after the Super Bowl? I would hope it went up a bit, because you know what? It's meaningless. It went from 0 to double 0. You know how I know that increasing 100% right after being shown in front of over 80 million people and spending $10 million on 4 ads is bad? Because this company aired an ad at Super Bowl 34 by the name of kforce.com. Take a look at this.
Hey, buddy, you looking for a job? Brother, you came to the right place. I got hot jobs, cool jobs, jobs that are absolute monsters. Just go and take your pick. You got me? Come on, right this way.
Tired of internet job sites that lead you nowhere? Log on to kforce.com with over 2,000 recruiting specialists whose only job is to get you the job. kforce.com. Opportunity has a new address.
Want to know how much traffic went up for that company right after the Super Bowl? A whopping 2,600%. And that was in between a 2 and 3 week period. So it was way higher than that right after the game. It helped that, you knew what they did. So you going up 100% immediately after the airing of the commercial, and then losing people that clicked on the site because they thought it was one thing when in actuality it was another, and then saying that you were in the right because you were trying to reach senior executives and not the general public, when no senior executives actually knew what the heck you were promoting, or if they knew, would have thought twice about trying to get consulting advice from a company that had no idea how to get their own message across, is insane. Pure insanity and delusion. I don't know how else to put it. Now, this is where this story takes a really bizarre turn. Unsurprisingly, after this scheme right here, Accenture never advertised at the big game ever again. I know, shocker. When you blow 8 figures on 4 ads and they don't convey the message that you want to get across, you're not inclined to spend on the big game again. But over the next 2 decades, they would be a consulting firm for many other companies that would produce Super Bowl ads of their own. And you know what ad they produced 2 decades later at Super Bowl 56? That's right, the Coinbase ad. You know that ad, right? The freaking Coinbase ad. The one with the bouncing QR code? The one that was the talk of the town? The one that I thought was one of the most genius ads in the history of the Super Bowl, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner? That ad, that was consulted on by Accenture, amazingly enough. So they were good at producing other ads for other companies, but not their own, I guess. Throughout this incredibly confusing, incredibly convoluted, and incredibly insane advertising campaign of theirs, Accenture's slogan was, "Now it gets interesting." And I think the general audience watching the Super Bowl was wondering when exactly the ads were going to get interesting. Because Accenture was right on this. When they said now it gets interesting, it did get interesting. Because it meant that the ad was finally done. And we could move on to something that was, indeed, more interesting by default. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.